Hello everybody, welcome back to the garden. Today's going to be a really fun episode as I'm going to start a broccoli seedling experiment because I found a lot of conflicting information on whether or not when you transplant your broccoli seedlings into the ground and bury them, if they shoot out roots or not. We have some people saying that they've had broccoli plants lay over and wherever they were touching the soil, they shot out and grew roots, and then other people saying, no, these broccoli plants are not going to grow roots when buried beneath the soil. The reason why I'm doing this in the first place is I've got to transplant these into some larger containers just for the meantime until we start hardening them off outside. We've got a couple of frosts coming yet before I can plant them out in the garden. So we're starting the hardening off process, but these seedlings are a little bit leggy here. So I'm going to show you guys, if you do have leggy seedlings, what you can do to take care of them. And then we're going to kick off this little experiment to see if those roots start to grow. I'm going to plant a bunch of them into the garden as I normally would, but then I'm going to keep a couple of our test subjects a little bit later on to see if roots do in fact grow from the stem when they're buried. Also, later on in this video, we're going to be showing you guys everything that we've got going on in the greenhouse with all of our seedlings and a little update video after we take care of these broccoli seedlings. Let me get a good example of one of the broccoli seedlings that is a little bit leggy. I am surprised that these are leggy at all because I have them under a 1,000-watt grow light that is going for, I think, 10 hours a day. So it's an LED full spectrum grow light that should be providing plenty of light, but maybe they just need it for a longer period of time than what I'm giving them. So right there, I guess, is what you would call a leggy seedling. So it's kind of long there and it's starting to tip over on the edge a little bit. Now you can transplant these right into your garden bed just fine like that, but if your seedlings are pretty leggy early on in the process, it's not going to hurt to plant them deeper into soil just to give them that upright position that they really want, so the plant's not struggling to reach for any light or anything like that. They've got a hard enough job the way it is, just growing from seeds, so the more help we can give them, the better. So that's why I'm going to transplant a few of these. And so I'm going to do the same thing like we did with our tomato seedlings yesterday. These were actually about 6 inches tall, and if you didn't see the video, check it out on my video upload list, or just search my channel for transplanting tomato seedlings and you'll find it. We basically just bury that whole stem in soil, and tomato plants are really incredible because that will, like, guaranteed they grow out roots from that stem. And so we're going to do the same thing with these broccoli seedlings and see if they do in fact grow roots or not. I'm really interested to kind of see what happens with this experiment here. By chance, if you guys do have some broccoli seedlings that you're looking to transplant, you're wondering maybe while you're watching this video when you can transplant them into your garden, just go on the Farmer's Almanac website, search Almanac Planting Calendar, and you'll find the dates for your area that you should be transplanting these into the ground. They can withstand a light frost, but a really heavy freeze, so anything below 30 degrees is going to be pretty hard on them. You can put Agribon over the top of your layer, on top of your rows, if you have got them in the garden already and planted, but now you have this big frost coming. You can put Agribon over it, or if it's going to be a really, really cold day, like say it's going to be like 26 or 28 degrees, what you can do at that point is take a large Rubbermaid or Tupperware, just some big plastic container, and create a little mini greenhouse over your seedlings. And that's really, really going to help out and minimize any damage that might come from a frost for your seedlings. So just a little tip there if you guys are looking to transplant them and then are worried about frost, because I know a lot of times we're so gung-ho on getting our plants in the ground and growing that we tend to forget how late it can frost in the season. I mean, sometimes we get frost weeks after the expected date. So having Agribon on hand, or like I said, a container like that really helps out. Soil mixture we're using here is just a Kellogg organic gardening soil mixture. It's got a good mix of compost, peat moss, and sphagnum moss. So there's some good organic materials in there that's going to break down, and also the compost provides a little bit of nutrients for the seedlings. At this stage they don't need a whole lot, but they're about to need more as they continue to grow. So if you're starting to see your seedlings look a little bit weak, or maybe they're starting to discolor a little bit, then maybe it's time to add some nutrients to them. And as long as they're not getting too much water, too little water, or too much or too little light. So really those are the three variables that we have to work with when growing seedlings. So we can see right here, this is what we've got our seedling planted up to. We took it right up to those true sets of leaves that came out of the soil. I already cut off all the cotyledon leaves. Those are the very first set that grows when the seed germinates. I usually like to cut those off because they're really just pulling sugar from the plant that we don't need. And I would rather have that going towards the true sets of leaves. So that's what it's going to look like right here. I'm going to do the same thing with a few more of these as our test subjects. And then the rest of them are, like I said, they're just going to be hardening off before I plant them directly into our garden later this week.
Good job. Good job.
Thanks, buddy.
Good job, kind of. Good job.
Right here we've got two growing in one plug. Unfortunately, at this point, instead of just tearing these apart and risking damage to both plants, I'm just going to take the one that's not quite in as good of shape and snip that right off. So the little guy wants some of our lettuce, so we're just going to snip off a head of it for him. Here you go. You can have this.
Where?
Lettuce. Is it good? You don't like it?
It's bad.
It's bad?
Yeah.
I think it's pretty good. Try another one? Here. It's arugula sprouts. What are they? How do they taste?
Good.
Good. We've got our 3 broccoli seedling test subjects all potted up, and what we're going to do is grow these for a few weeks longer in here and see if they produced any roots. And then if they get too big for these containers, what I'll do is transplant them into the garden. Again, what we'll be doing in the garden beds after this point is burying them deep, just like we did with all of our tomato seedlings. And we'll see if these babies produce roots out of the stems or not. Like I said earlier in the video though, whether or not these produce roots from the stems, you can still transplant them like this to keep it upright if your seedling is a little bit leggy. Whew, it's getting hot in here already. It is about 85 degrees in here, while outside it's only about 56, so it's time to open this thing up. Right now, I'm going to show you guys the good, the somewhat bad, and the ugly of everything that we have going on here in the greenhouse. Just to finish off this video, we've got a lot of cool stuff growing in here, and a couple of interesting failures that I think aren't going to turn out so bad after all. So let's take a look at everything we've got going on here. All right, we're going to start off, if you guys didn't see the video on transplanting our tomato seedlings. We got a ton of these tomato seedlings buried deep into this new transplant container. And what I mean by that is that these seedlings were actually about 6 inches tall before we transplanted them. And what we did was buried them in the soil. And those will grow roots from the stem wherever they're buried in the soil. So you're going to produce so much better plants by burying your tomato seedlings compared to keeping them at the same level that they were at when you germinated them in the first place. So very excited for those. We've got Cherokee purple tomatoes, Roma tomatoes, beefsteak tomatoes, and early girl tomatoes right here. Very excited. We've got a ton of them growing. I'm most excited for the Cherokee purple tomatoes, of course. It's a wonderful heirloom variety. First time growing them. Really excited for that. Then we've got our sweet cucumbers popping up, our Sumter cucumbers, and then some of our pickling cucumbers are also coming up. Zucchini's coming up nice, and then arugula is going to be transplanted out into our little lettuce bed pretty soon here. So all of those are right on track. We should have plenty enough plants to grow. I like to grow more than what I need of everything, because you get a ton of seeds in the packet for like $2 or $1, whatever packet you're buying. And that's going to be enough to last you for a couple of years. And whatever extra you have, you can always gift them to a family member or friend, or sell them in a garage sale early on in the season. Our lettuce blend variety is looking beautiful. We got some great colors in there. Those are going to be transplanted over with the arugula in our little lettuce bed that we have. And then what you guys just saw, we've got some broccoli seedlings here. Almost done with all of the seedlings. What we have here is a bunch of different flower varieties. None of them have germinated yet, which I'm kind of surprised. Hopefully this week we see some germination. If not, I think they might be just old seeds. It was part of a collection that we've had for a few years, and they might not germinate because of how old they are. But I would think some of these would germinate, but at least some, but just none of them have came up yet. And I think it's been like over 10 days since I put these in here, if not more. So hopefully eventually they will come up. I'm banking on it. They definitely, at least some of them will. And then speaking of seedlings not coming up, our onion seedlings have not came up yet either. They usually take about 10 to 14 days, so it might be a little bit longer on those yet. So what we did with this is I germinated a bunch in seed trays, but I only put one per cell, and I only had a few of them germinate. So I figured, well, if I've got a bad bag, what I'll do is I'll dump all of the rest of them in here. And onions are very cool in the fact that you can grow a whole carpet of onions and then separate them out later on without damaging the root system. The onions are like bulletproof. So if you need to grow a bunch of onions, or worried about them not germinating in your seed starting trays, then grow them this way, because you can grow 100 of them in a container of this size and then separate them out once they're about 3 inches tall. Over here we've got even more tomato seedlings that are not ready to be transplanted yet. And then here are some willow cuttings. We've got a weeping willow, a curly willow, and then a Salix purpurea. This is a basket weaving willow, so really excited to grow all those. And then our larger weeping willow cuttings are all down here. We've got them all potted up in a previous video where I showed you guys how to take the cuttings, how to grow them, how to transplant them, the whole video from start to finish. And we've got some good growth going on them. I'm sure the roots are very happy in those larger containers in the soil. If you do grow weeping willow cuttings or any sort of willow cuttings, just make sure that you keep that soil moist at all times. Over here's a little compost experiment where I'm seeing how fast different succulents break down in this container here. Some of them are actually starting to grow right at the top. I'm looking at doing a video in about a month from now on the process on how fast these do break down in soil. I just had a bunch of extra ones that we had to get rid of because of space constraints, and I figured I'd do a cool experiment on those. And lastly, we've got some hollyhocks growing. There's a forsythia there. Actually, that's the forsythia. And there's another forsythia outside, and then this is called a potentilla, yeah, potentilla I think it was. So that we just had overwintering in here. because it was going to get too cold while it was in a pot outside. It does stay a few degrees warmer in here in the winter, and so it looks like it survived. I am not sure if these lavenders survived though, because I haven't seen any new growth on here, and it just might have been too cold this winter for them. They're a variety of Spanish lavender that we propagated and grew. I figured I would try and keep them out here and see if they grew instead of growing them inside, but I don't know if they'll be able to make it. It's still kind of up in the air with them. Oh wait, I forgot something. And now the ugly. What happened to this whole tray is I forgot them outside while I was hardening them off. These are broccoli, kohlrabi, red Russian kale, and dinosaur kale. What I did was I totally forgot about them, and then I came out and it was 24 degrees in here. Actually, it was 30 degrees in here, 24 degrees outside, so they were completely frozen. And what I did was immediately cut off all of the leaves that were growing, and hopefully that can help induce a little bit of growth. As you can see here, everything's growing, tiny little new leaves, so I think they might have had just enough energy left in them to survive despite being completely frozen over. So pretty interesting that they can survive such a hard freeze. I mean, the entire plant, the plant cells, the root system, everything was totally frozen. And from the looks of it, I think a few of them are still going to make it. There you have it, guys. Even though we've got a real small greenhouse here, you can see that there can still be a lot going on, and we haven't even utilized maybe about 50% of the space in here. So we're just gonna kind of getting our hands dirty in our first year of it this year, trying not to kill all of our plants, trying not to forget whole trays out here mistakenly, and just learning as we go. It's been a really fun experience so far. It's been a good year of gardening, and we are growing so much food this year. I'm really excited for it. Thank you all so much for tuning in to today's video. I hope your gardens are coming along very well. I hope you're getting out there, getting your hands dirty, learning new things each and every day, as we always should as gardeners. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.